this is a last time revision class. Okay, I'll just give a quick recap of the last time what I taught you. This is the parietal cells of the GI. Okay, over here there's a one pump, and this pump is the hydrogen and the potassium pump. Okay, and this pump is being facilitated by or the stimulated by the acetylcholine ACH. The first one, the followed by the second one is the histamine, and the third one is the gastrin. As I already mentioned you that for the peptic ulcer disease, first we have to we have to decrease the acid content from the GIT. And how we will reduce that acid content from the GIT? How? With if this acetylcholine, this histamine, and this gastrin, they all stimulated this pump. They help this hydrogen and the potassium pump to produce much and much acid. Only one thing which doesn't help this potassium, hydrogen potassium proton pump is the PGET, prostaglandin enzyme. These are the inhibitor, and this and last three, and this acetylcholine, histamine, and the gastrin. These are the stimulating this proton pump. And in ACH, already I said that the parietal cells, HCl is being secreted by the parietal cells. The parietal cells have a specific receptor known as the M3 receptor, but still we are not giving M3, we are giving M1 receptor. Why so? Because if we block M3 receptor, then the condition will be much more disaster, as because M3 receptor not only present in the not only over here is not only present in the parietal lining but is also present in the inner lining of the stomach. Thus what happened, the peristalsis, the wave like contraction of the undigested food, that will be decreased, and plus the gastric contractions will also decrease, and hence the duration of the acids will remain over there. So we will use other receptor, and that other receptor is the M1 receptor. Where the M1 receptor is present in the gastric ganglia, it will come towards in front of the parietal cell, and it will release the acetylcholine. Anyone say me what are the medicines that comes under the M1 category?
Sir, pyrazine.
Other one?
Talenziquine.
Pirinzapine and telenzipan. These are the two medicines, the easiest medicine. The pirinzapine and the telenzipan, that will come under the M1 category. And thus followed by the second one, histamine. As I already said you, the histamine is also secreted in the parietal cell, and histamine, it has a specific receptor known as an H2 receptor. This histamine also stimulates this pump, H plus and K plus pump, to produce much more acid. But we have all friends in our group, in our life. So this histamine are a very good friend of those two, the left hand side and the right hand side. The left hand side is the acetylcholine, and the right hand side is the gastrin. When histamine will not work, they two will come together, acetylcholine and gastrin, and they will help histamine to produce much more acid. So we have to block also the histamine with the H2 receptor. So can anyone say me what are the medicines that belongs to the H2 receptor?
Tidine, cimetidine, famotidine. अरे fuck यार.
What are the medicine? I can't hear. Who said? Who said? Hello.
Sir, cimetidine, ranitidine,
Cimetidine, ranitidine, or
famotidine,
famotidine.
and
Yeah, just okay. Just remember that histamine group medicine always ends with tidine. And one medicine, if you don't be able to remember each and every medicine, just remember the last 10 tidine. And the in histamine category, I've already said you the most important medicine is the cimetidine. Because why so? Because cimetidine causes gynecomastia, cimetidine causes CNS dizziness, cimetidine causes the GIT problem, diarrhea. Plus cimetidine, as you all know, last time also I said, it is one of the most important microsomal enzyme inhibition. It means it causes many more drug to drug interactions. Which drug interactions? If someone is taking anticoagulant, there is a heparin, warfarin, it will interact. In other class, I think in pharmacology, in the basic pharmacology, there's a one list of some drugs which causes drug to drug action, means which causes the inhibition and which causes the stimulation. I think many of you know. Can anyone say me some causes drugs which causes the stimulation and causes which inhibition? Okay, I think no one knows. Okay, in general pharmacology, I will explain that thing. But for now only, just remember that cimetidine is one of the most in microsomal enzyme inhibition, followed by the gastrin. Gastrin, as I already said, that no gastrin is only one receptor, CCK receptor, and that CCK receptor name is cholecystokinin receptor. For gastrin CCK receptor, still now we have no medicine. So just remember the gastrin also help this pump. This much only. The third one, PGE2, prostaglandin. What does it do? What does it do? Prostaglandin. It is also it just like other thing, just acetylcholine, histamine, gastrin. They stimulate, and the prostaglandin is inhibit. Means it allows the proton pump not to produce acid. So we will help the PGE2 that please allow this thing so that acid will not produce. But suppose if someone take NSAID, and before that I should also explain that I said that in peptic ulcer disease there are the two most important factor. One is the aggressive factor and one is the protective factor. What are the aggressive factors in peptic ulcer disease? Sneha Tripathi? Sneha, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sneha?
Neha, please speak. Neha.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I don't. Last lecture I wasn't there. So I don't know, sir.
But please be fast. Please be fast, because the more you take time, the duration will be comes down. Even in the middle, I have to end the lecture. So if you don't know, nothing to problem. Just say, just say, I don't know. Someone else, if know the answer, he or she can say.
Okay, sir. Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
So,
So if NSAID, if someone, what are the aggressive factor for the peptic ulcer disease? In the first lecture, I show you what are the aggressive factor and what are the defensive factors.
HCl, sir.
hydrochloric acid,
Yes, HCl is the aggressive factor.
aggressive factor,
Aggressive factor,
Yes,
and the
sir.
protective factor is the mucus and the bicarbonate. Okay.
bicarbonate.
Okay. So PGA2, how does PGA2 will help? PGA2 will increase that the protective factor, the mucus, bicarbonate, and the mucosal blood flow, so that the production of the acid will comes down. But if someone is taking NSAID, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, then what will happen? Then the PGA2 will stop its work, so the protective factor will not produce and the aggressive factor will increase, and hence the peptic ulcer will much more increase. So there's a question, if and what is the drug, which drug comes under the PGE2? I already explained that the drug name is the misoprostol, and that misoprostol was a very toxic drug. It can causes abortion. So if any pregnant in pregnancy time, you can't prescribe misoprostol, because it's a drug. You have to keep it in the back of your mind that it causes abortion. Other thing, PGE2 misoprostol, it causes diarrhea, so it's not used very often. But one over here is a one tricky question. One question: NSAID induced specific drug. See, if NSAID say, if NSAID causes ulcer, then what will be the drug name? Then the drug name is the misoprostol. But if the drug of choice, they will ask the specific drug of choice for the NSAID induced ulcer, then the misoprostol will not be the answer. Then the drug of choice will be the proton pump inhibitor. Can you get my point?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Please
I
say,
didn't understand.
there's in PGE2, there is two questions in every exam. Please remember, NSAID causes induced ulcer for that specific drug. NSAID induced ulcer for specific drug will be the misoprostol. Okay, but the drug of choice for the NSAID induced ulcer, what the drug of choice means? It means is a specific drug for the specific thing, drug of choice. Then I have no choice. Okay, so it means simply, I can give a one example. Okay, in our college life, we all like girls. Okay, we all have girlfriends. Okay, but if anyone say me that what is which among the 10 girl which is my crush, The crush is something else. But if anyone asks me, the Jaideep, who is your girlfriend? That answer will be different. So over here is also the same thing. That NSAID's girlfriend is the proton pump inhibitor, but the NSAID's crush is the PGA2 drug, the misoprostol. Now can understand everyone?
Yes. Sir, can you repeat the name of the drugs again? One is
Misoprostol,
misoprostol and the another
misoprostol,
one?
and the proton pump, the PPI, proton pump. The drug of choice for the NSAID induced ulcer is the PPI. The PPI drug means the omeprazole, pantoprazole, lansoprazole. Okay, that's a drug of choice. But NSAID induced ulcer is specific drug, the misoprostol. Now I think everyone's clear about this thing. And the fourth one is a proton pump. Fourth one, and this is a very important proton pump because this is the main. Overall, the maximum medicines come from the proton pump. Okay, this is the medicines which we used to take in our home, that the lansoprazole, omeprazole, pantoprazole. As they already said that it is a drug which we used to take orally. So stomach, and how that is work, the proton pump, the omeprazole, lansoprazole, the mechanism of action. If suppose some drug is taken by mouth, and if the drug is directly goes to the stomach, then it will inhibit. So for that, the specific drug, the omeprazole or the pantoprazole, before prepared, they used to prepare in a special covering, and that covering is known as enteric coating. Why it is given that enteric coating? Because our main aim is to dissolve, is to make that drug dissolve in our blood, so that it will make a very good rapid action. And how come so? Whenever we will take that omeprazole, lansoprazole, pantoprazole, any prazole, okay, that made from an enteric coating, special coating, and the drug after from the stomach, it directly comes to the intestine and it absorbs in the blood parietal cell, and from there it starts working. As I all know that in blood the pH is not acidic, pH is alkaline, 7.4, so it's an acid labile drug. And long term this sorry, a long time of this it can also causes. And one more thing, that all the prazoles are the pro drug. What is the meaning of the pro drug? Pro drug means these drugs are inactive in some position, and after when the medium is changed, they become active. And plus these drugs are also hit and run drug. I last time I explained with Salman Khan, hit and run drug means the drug which comes to their action specific site and do their action, and after a few seconds they dissolve, means they come and they do their action and after that they went out. These drugs are known as the hit and run drugs, and all these hit and run drugs, they comes under the CNS category. But in GIT, just remember the proton pump, all the PPI drugs, they are also the hit and run drugs. They are the pro drugs. And what are the drugs? That the lansoprazole, omeprazole, pantoprazole. And if anyone takes a long term of that drug, it can also causes the decreases the two things. One is the calcium, and the other one is the vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 may causes megaloblastic anemia, and so other one is causes the calcium is decreases. Then, as we all know, it causes the osteoporosis. Okay. Hello. Hello. Okay. Is it?
Yes, sir.
धीरे से मत बोलो, जरा जोर से बोलो.
Just say it loud. Say it loud.
Yes, sir.
Just see, these are all the last time slides which I mentioned again. The treatment for the peptic ulcer HCl, how the H plus K plus pump, SCH, histamine, gastrin inhibited by that PGA2, prostaglandin. And what are the drugs of the M1? If anyone writes, then please write the drugs, because these are the very specified drugs which I mentioned over here. If the questions will come, the questions will come only from these drugs, none other than any other drugs. Please, I am very much sure. So if anyone writing, please write it down, or if anyone skip, then please say me, I will back it. Okay. These are the drugs which comes under the M1 category. And what are the drugs? These are the two drugs, pyrizinamide and the telangiecine. Then the H2 blockers drug, as I already mentioned you, ranitidine, cimetidine, famotidine, and nizatidine. cimetidine, ranitidine, famotidine, and nizatidine. These are all the pharmacodynamics and pharmacokinetics which I already explained last time. So now it's no use.
Look, cemetery.
Last time someone asked me one question. Sir, I have already mentioned that the treatment of GERD is the, I don't know what's her name, I think so. The treatment of drug is tidine. Then what will the drug of choice for the GERD? Can anyone say her name? Who asked me this question? Can you please say me your name? Who asked
It
you
was
this?
me,
What's the good name?
the Karishma.
Karishma.
Karishma, sir.
Karishma, what you asked me that, sir, if the tidines can be used for the GERD, then what will be the drug of choice for the GERD, right?
Yes, sir.
If someone asks the specific drug of choice for the GERD, then just say PPI. Okay, proton pump inhibition.
This lady, is it that me I have money or what? What is happening with this girl? What's wrong with this girl?
Hello. Who's this?
If anybody wants to ask a question, you are not able to be heard, please put it in the chat box. Your question will be answered.
Sir, someone said something from the back. I can't hear.
Yeah. It was not very clear. So he'll put the question in the chat box.
Okay.
And then you can answer it. You please continue.
Okay. So Karishma, if someone asks you that what is the drug of choice for the GERD, please don't hesitate to say the PPI. And what are the drugs for the PPI? Lansoprazole, esomeprazole, or pantoprazole. Okay. Karishma, can you got your answer?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. And after that, I already said that cimetidine causes gynecomastia, dynamic side effect, GIT, diarrhea, constipation, CNS, dizziness, headache, drowsiness. Okay. Drug-to-drug interaction. These are all the cimetidine drugs which can cause the drug-to-drug interaction. When I will take the first class, in general pharma, over there is some very much receptor for the CYP 450, CYC 319, because these are the microsomal enzymes inducers names. Okay, this is the pathway, not the name, the pathway, how they will drug-to-drug interaction will occur, and how time for which drug we cannot give this medicines, or how to we will share this medicine, we will change the dosage. In first class I will mention, but now please remember this thing, that this cimetidine is a much more potent microsomal enzyme inducer. It interacts with the various drugs, and which are the drugs? Anticoagulants, phenytoin, alcohol, and the antidepressants. And now the counts are very most important, PPI. And what are the drugs which comes under the PPI is the lansoprazole, omeprazole, esomeprazole, and the pantoprazole. PPI. And now comes today's topic. Now we have already finished the peptic ulcers. Not finished the peptic ulcer. In peptic ulcer, that there is one mode of treatment is to decrease the acid. Okay, by decreasing the HCl. By all these drugs. Now antacid. What is the role of antacids in peptic ulcer disease? I will explain just look at the first picture. Look at the first picture. Suppose you are in your emergency department at night. One patient came at the age of 48 years old. 48.
Jaideep, you are not audible.
Is my screen audible? Is my screen? Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see the screen and you are audible now.
Okay. So now we will discuss what is the role of antacid in the peptic ulcer disease. Please look in the first picture where the HCl is marking towards the pain. The first picture. at an emergency department, you are sitting in the emergency or whole day, tired, boring day, monotonous. One patient came with the age of 48 years and he complained. What is his chief complaint? Burning pain in the epigastric region, burning sensation pain. And when you take the history, and the patient describes that yes, he used to take the medicines for the peptic ulcer disease. So can you now he didn't take any medicines, and so that's why he is having a pain in the epigastric region, burning pain. Can you say me what medicine will you prescribe this time? Can anyone say me from his idea?
Give some medication to directly block the secretion of HCl.
PPI. Okay, nice answer. Who said PPI?
Sir J.
Okay. Any other answers? There are 61 participants, I
So
think so.
since PPI is a slow drug, wouldn't we first want to, stop whatever is causing his burning sensation in the epigastric region?
PGE2.
What? I can't hear you. Can you say me loudly?
PGE2.
PGE2 means misoprostol. Okay. Any more? Say whatever comes in your mind. Say you can say.
Something that would show immediate action.
Yes. This is the
So
answer.
why can't we give ranitidine?
Why?
Ranitidine.
Ranitidine. Okay. It comes from the H2 blocker. Okay.
So misoprostol.
Misoprostol from the PGA2. No, you already said misoprostol. Okay. Now I will give you the answer. Clarification. See, whenever the patient comes to the emergency department, what he always wants a quick remedy.
So PPI.
Okay, and for the quick remedy, first we will PPI. We can give PPI, okay, lisinoprostol, pantoprazole, okay, we can give, but before that we can give for the quickest action that the antacids. Everyone knows the antacids. What's the role of antacids? Why I mentioned this diagram? Say HCl. After that HCl, I mentioned it touches the one arrow. Suppose this is the ulcer. I have taken a two margin and imagine this is the ulcer. When this HCl touches that ulcer region, no, the pain start. How the pain start? Because over there already an ulcer formed. So whenever we will apply whenever the HCl touches that region, no, the pain automatically started. And for that pain, the patient come to the emergency ward, and we can start the what to say, pantoprazole, lisinoprostol, but for that it will take some action. The ones who will attend in the ones who will come with the patients. If patients say that no, still no, he's not been relieved with the pain, the attendance, believe me, the attendance will not be allowed to work with some other patients. He will always say, sir, pain company hua, pain is still not going down, sir, please do something. So we will put antacid, will give antacids. Okay, and what is the role of antacids? Is nothing. What he will do, it will neutralize the HCl, the acid in the GIT. It will, if the acid in the GIT is neutralizes the acid, then there will be no acid, and the acid will can't touch the pain, the ulcer region, which I show this mark. Can everyone see, right? So this HCl then, hello, okay. So the HCl will not touch this pain. This is the ulcer. This is the ulcer. This is the marking point. So the pain will not be there. And what are the role of antacids? The antacid, it will just neutralizes the HCl. But for that antacids, there are two disadvantages for the antacid. Say it is the fastest pain reliever for the PUD, peptic ulcer disease. I have mentioned. If anyone says that which is the fastest pain reliever for the PUD, there will be lot of options. Someone will say the pantoprazole, someone will say the ranitidine, someone will say the misoprostol. Please be very much sure enough. I have already said you, misoprostol will not be. If any pregnant woman comes to you, then you can't prescribe misoprostol because you are doing a disaster. Because as I already said, misoprostol can causes the abortion, and also in cimetidine the H2 blocker, it may causes the gynecomastia. So he or she, the patient who comes to the emergency department, they want the fastest action. So we will always prescribe antacid, so that what the antacid will do, it will automatically neutralize the HCl content from the GIT, so that the HCl will not be able to touch that the peptic ulcer region. And so your answer will be blindfoldedly antacids. But there are the two things in antacids. One is the aluminum hydroxide and the magnesium hydroxide. They always used to ask this question: who causes constipation and who causes diarrhea? In my whole academic year, I have a huge confusion regarding these two things. Aluminum causes constipation and magnesium causes diarrhea. How to remember this thing? Very simple. I remember this thing, just see. Follow the alphabet. English A, B, C. A, B, C, D. After aluminum, A, and followed by the C, constipation. Magnesium, and after that followed by the D, diarrhea. If aluminum A, then C. A, B, C. Aluminum, constipation. A, C. Magnesium causes diarrhea. Because every examiner, they used to ask among antacids which can causes diarrhea and which causes constipation. Okay?
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Dr.
So
Jaideep,
you
can
said
I-
for
Yeah, please ask, please ask.
so you said that for peptic ulcer diseases caused by what PGE, the drug of choice is PPI because misoprostol is toxic.
Mm.
So why do you say that? Why would misoprostol be used at all if it is toxic?
Okay, nice. If no pregnant or if no pregnancy came, if no pregnant no came, no patient with pregnancy, then you can prescribe misoprostol. No, misoprostol is toxic in some cases. I said misoprostol is toxic as it may causes abortion. Misoprostol is toxic, it may causes diarrhea. So if any pregnant woman came, then you can't prescribe misoprostol. And if someone is taking NSAID, non-steroid anti-inflammatory drug, and for that anything peptic ulcer disease occur, then you can give misoprostol. But for the best for the NSAID drug of choice will be the proton PPI. Suppose, just listen, when we give exam, no, there's two questions. What is the drug of choice and what is the specific drug? But in practical life, whenever we should deal with the patients, we always deal with the drug of choice. For the NSAID, you can give the misoprostol because it's a specific drug for the PGE2. But for the drug of choice, you may give the PPI. But if any pregnant woman came, then you can't give misoprostol because, as I already mentioned, it's a toxic, so it may lead to the abortion.
Okay, sir. Thank
Do you get my point?
Yes.
Okay. Now, sir, what you were saying?
I was just telling them to remember this since they're staying in Guyana and their degree is MD physician. So always remember MD, magnesium causes diarrhea, and they cannot remain without AC. So aluminum hydroxide causes constipation.
Oh wow, sir, it's a very good mnemonic.
Okay. So just say you can't live without AC and you have gone there to get a degree of MD.
Wow, it's a very good mnemonic. I remember in my whole academic year, it's a very confusing, and the invigilator used to ask from the antacid which causes constipation and which causes diarrhea. I remember from the alphabetically ordered A followed by the C and after that D with the MG. But what sir said, it's a very good mnemonic. You can remember from that thing also that MG causes MD degree and that AC. Now comes to this topic. Now we have already discussed with the decrease with the acids. Now we have discussed with the antacid. Now the other most important is the ulcer protective. How the ulcer protective is mean. Now see, there is an acid. Now comes to this. Now come below. Now below this diagram, there is an acid. This is an acid HCl. Now see, the red region is what? The peptic ulcer disease. Red region is the PUD, peptic ulcer. And the green region, which I marked with the green border, is the protective zone. Okay. So you can also, suppose every time, is it not necessary for you to decrease the HCl content? You may also make a protective zone around that that peptic ulcer disease. Suppose in the above diagram, I mentioned you, I said you that whenever the HCl touches that peptic ulcer region, it causes pain. For that, we give antacid in order to reduce the HCl. But sometimes what we can also do, the red region is the peptic ulcer region. Before the red region, we can make a protective covering so that HCl will not be able to touch that red area, the peptic ulcer region, and this is the known as a protective zone. And this protective zone, there is some drug which is known as ulcer protective. Ulcer protective means we will give drug to such a way that they will make a protective coating around that peptic, that the PUD, peptic ulcer disease, so that they will make a coat in such a way that whenever the HCl will go, the content of HCl will increase. No matter, it will always touch that protective zone. It will not touch the red region, as I mentioned, the peptic zone. And what is that drug which can causes a protective zone is a sucralfate. Everybody knows this name, sucralfate. Sucralfate. But and how does this sucralfate work? Sucralfate works by the polymerization. Polymerization is the only mechanism of action by which sucralfate acts. But here is a one very question, where a very good question. Just see, it should not be combined with antacids. It should not be combined with antacids. Can anyone say me why it should not be combined with the antacids? If you attentively, if you listen to my previous explanation, you can easily say that why sucralfate cannot be combined with the antacids.
The antacids neutralize the acidic condition of the the stomach. So
This
if
is
sucralfate requires a lower pH,
yes,
and
yes,
if the
yes,
antacid is going to neutralize it,
yes.
then it won't act.
It would, this is the reason. This is the reason when we give sucralfate, no, we didn't give antacids, because and sucralfate is a one drug which works with the acidic pH less than 4, and whenever we'll combine with the antacids, what antacids will do, it will decrease the HCl content from the GIT, and if it decreases the HCl content, then sucralfate, there's a no role of sucralfate, because sucralfate cannot work under. Sucralfate only works with the acidic pH less than 4. So it very keep it, we should have to keep it in mind that we will never combine with this antacids. We'll never combine with the antacids. And this is a sucralfate in the green area which I show over here. This how the sucralfate makes a protective coating around the peptic ulcer disease, so that whenever the HCl will, the increasement of the HCl will not hamper the peptic ulcer disease, and the patient will not come to the emergency ward with a burning pain. Besides that, we can also use one other thing that is known as bismuth. What is bismuth? Bismuth is a metal. Bismuth is a metal. So we can use this metal also. And that the preparation name is the colloidal bismuth subcitrate. And in the short form, in any exam, remember, in any exam, no, they will never retain that this is a huge name, colloidal bismuth subcitrate. They will always retain CBS, and from that CBS you have to understand that what the invigilator wants to ask from me. The CBS causes bismuth poisoning, and I have mentioned that red and red because it's very easy to understand. Just like proton pump, what proton pump for a long time, proton PPI causes the bone, is decrease the calcium osteoporosis, even in also the vitamin B12 deficiency, megaloblastic anemia. And bismuth also causes the one poisoning, and that sorry, bismuth also causes a poisoning. What poisoning? In bone it causes osteodystrophy, in brain it causes encephalopathy. Bismuth with the two B, remember, with bismuth with the bone it causes osteodystrophy, and with the brain it causes the encephalopathy. So once more, in ulcer protective drug there is a two drug. One is the sucralfate and other one is the bismuth. Bismuth is a metal, so we will make one preparation, and that preparation is named as colloidal bismuth subcitrate. What this drug will do, this drug makes a protective layering, just see in the green mark, around the peptic ulcer disease. So whenever the HCl content will increase in the GIT, it will, what it will do, it will just hit that the green area. Green area is the protection. I already made a protective zone, so the patient will not come with that epigastric pain or burning sensation in his stomach. Okay, so we can give these two drugs. What are these two drugs?
So,
Hello, say.
so if CVS causes bismuth poisoning, up to how much can we administer into the patient?
Up to how? Can you explain me? Can you explain your question?
So you said that we can give CVS as a ulcer protective measure. Okay, fine. But it can also cause bismuth poisoning. So how much can we?
Okay, okay. I already said you, but for exam, we have to study everything. But for practical use, we only do that thing which causes a quick relief. For practical use, till now I see only to give sucralfate. Still my pointer, but in CVS in every book they have written the colloidal bismuth subcitrate up to some point. Okay, I will come at the end of this when I will discuss with the questions. Up to some certain level they add some colloidal bismuth subcitrate, but not very. It's a very up to date drug, means it's a very, this drug is not used very often. If very often any drug can be used, and that drug is a sucralfate because it doesn't have any side effect. So bismuth subcitrate, it has a side effect with the bone osteodystrophy and brain encephalopathy. So this drug doesn't use so much. Okay, for the but for our examination point of view, but for study point of view, we have to study this drug CVS. And there is some specific measurement for that. Specific measurement around, some measurement will be there for the colloidal bismuth subcitrate. But every time the sucralfate is a drug which is used for the ulcer protection. Okay.
Okay, sir.
See, now peptic ulcer disease not only caused by acid, increased acids only. Okay, peptic ulcer disease. First, in the first slide, what I mentioned. Now, in peptic ulcer disease, everything is not finished. Acetylcholine with this histamine, gastrin, PGE2, and proton pump. Now, sorry, my first mode of treatment was to my first mode of treatment was to decrease the acid. Okay, for in that acid category, I have mentioned all the drugs. These are all the drugs in the acid category. Second, in the peptic ulcer disease, the second mode of treatment is the antacids. Third mode of treatment is the ulcer protective. Now there are some bacteria, H. pylori. Okay, there's some bacteria which can also causes the peptic ulcer disease. Can anyone say me, if this causes by the bacteria, then can we give the other drugs, proton pump inhibitor, ranitidine, cimetidine, antacids? Can we give the other drugs if peptic ulcer disease caused by any H bacteria, Helicobacter pylori?
So, won't it decrease the pain?
I can't get you. Can you repeat, please? Can you repeat me? Can you repeat?
We can give it secondary to antibiotics, as it can help to reduce the oversecretion of hydrogen ions and HCl.
Okay. Any other good explanation? Any other? Aarti?
So the antibiotic only help in curing the infection caused by the bacteria.
Now, my question is, if the peptic ulcer disease can be caused by the Helicobacter pylori, then can we give the other drugs only, the proton pump inhibitor, the ranitidine, cimetidine, pyrizinamide?
No, sir, we can't give other drugs because the bacteria will still be alive and that can cause even more problem.
Okay. Yes, you are absolutely right. We just listen. If we can give the PPI, we can give PPI. Why not? It's also a treatment, mode of treatment for the peptic ulcer disease. We can give PPI, but the patient will again come after a few days because it will relapse. It will be fine, but it will again relapse due to the bacteria. So For the if anything caused by the Helicobacteria pylori, then we have to be very cautious that if we use the PPI, then the patient will again come down. So for that, there is a one specific therapy. This therapy is known as triple drug therapy, and there's some antibiotics we use. And first antibiotic is known as the amoxicillin. The other one is the metronidazole, and the third one is the clarithromycin. The clarithromycin is comes from the macrolide category. The amoxicillin is comes from the penicillin G category. These antibiotics I will all give you a brief discussion on the microbial topic. But still now, just remember the main important point over here: the triple drug therapy. Well, what the triple drug therapy means? We will definitely give proton pump inhibition. We definitely give PPI. Plus, we will also add two antimicrobial agents, AMA. AMA means antimicrobial agent, because if we give PPI, the patient will again come, the bacteria will relapse. So what in antimicrobial agents we can add? We can add the very famous mnemonic is the CAP. Just remember CAP. What is the CAP? C stands for clarithromycin, A stands for amoxicillin, and P stands for PPI. Clarithromycin, I just give you. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, please
Someone
carry on.
shouting.
Please carry on.
We will give PPI plus two antimicrobial agents. And what are the antimicrobial agents that come under the famous mnemonic CAP? C stands for clarithromycin, A stands for amoxicillin, and P for proton pump inhibition. And PPI, from the PPI, you can choose anything: osmeprazole, pantoprazole, lisinoprazole, omeprazole, anything. And this drug should be given for how many weeks? It's a very important question. Teacher is to ask for how many weeks. Will you take lifelong? Will you take anything? With this drug is to taken for the 2 weeks. The triple drug therapy. This triple drug therapy means it's a combination of 3 drugs, 2 antimicrobial agent and the 1 proton pump inhibition. And the 2 antimicrobial agent which comes from the one is the clarithromycin, which comes from the penicillin category, amoxicillin, clarithromycin which comes from the macrolide category, amoxicillin which comes from the penicillin category, and the PPI, proton pump inhibition. Now, this is the triple drug therapy for the H. pylori. Now we finished peptic ulcer disease. In GIT, the main thing is the peptic ulcer. Remember, the main thing is the peptic ulcer, followed by the anti-emetics, anti-diarrheal, the vomiting. These are all things. But the main, if any teacher, if any invigilator ask you questions from the GIT, then that means that the teacher wants to know this theory, this diagram. This is this diagram that your teacher wants to know. And if you know this diagram, believe me, wherever you are, for how many years, you will not able to forget. You will not forget any medicine, because if you remember this diagram, everything comes under automatically. Which are the things which stimulate the proton pump H plus and K plus, and which are the things which inhibit the proton pump, and what are the drugs which comes under the PPI. Please remember this thing, and by this we ends with the treatment of the peptic ulcer disease. In GIT, it is the most important topic in peptic ulcer. And how we will decrease the peptic ulcer? By decrease the HCl content, by all this, by decrease the antacids with the help of antacids, followed by with the help of some ulcer protective drugs, sucralfate and bismuth substrate, and followed by the peptic ulcer caused by any bacteria, then it will be caused by the triple drug therapy. Now with this we finish the peptic ulcer. Now we will move towards the next topic in GIT, is the anti-emetic drug. Any question from peptic ulcer disease? Any question from peptic ulcer?
So,
Yes, sir.
can you
So can you repeat it? If you have NSAID induced ulcers, what is the drug of choice?
See, still now you are very confusing. I have already said that NSAID induced ulcer is a induced specific drug NSAID induced ulcer specific drug is misoprostol. But the drug of choice for the NSAID induced ulcer is the PPI. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Do you know Hindi? Is everyone know
Yes, sir.
Hindi? Almost, I
Yes,
think
sir.
so. Knows Hindi, right?
No, there are others who don't understand Hindi.
No. Just, but for the just one example, sir. Just those who understand Hindi, for them only. See, ये मिसोप्रिस्टोल वाला सवाल बार बार आ रहा है तुम लोगों के दिमाग में. मैं अभी बेस्ट एग्जांपल दिया. हमारे कॉलेज में हमारे पास बहुत सारे लड़की दोस्त होते थे. उनमें से हमारे कोई लड़की दोस्त क्रश होते थे जो हमारी गर्लफ्रेंड्स नहीं होते थे. और जो स्पेसिफिक थी एक लड़की जो उसको हम गर्लफ्रेंड बोलते थे. क्योंकि हाँ, अगर कोई तुमसे पूछे कि तुम्हारा गर्लफ्रेंड कौन है जयदीप, आई विल स्पेसिफाई द वन पर्टिकुलर गर्ल. अगर कोई मेरे से पूछता था तुम्हारा क्रश कौन है, देन आई कैन से हिज हर नेम दैट नेम ब्ला ब्ला ब्ला. ये भी सेम सिचुएशन है, ये भी सेम स्टोरी है. मिसोप्रिस्टोल NSAID का क्रश कौन है, याद रखना मिसोप्रिस्टोल. NSAID से अगर किसी को अल्सर हुआ, उसका ड्रग ऑफ चॉइस मींस उसका गर्लफ्रेंड पूछ रहा है इन्विजिलेटर, दैट टाइम यू विल से प्रोटॉन पंप PPI.
Okay, sir.
Now is it clear? I think
Yes,
so.
sir.
Everyone. Okay. Now go to the other topic is the antiemetic drug. What are the antiemetic drug means? Antiemetic drug is the drug which is able to manage the nausea and the vomiting. Okay. And what is the nausea? And the nausea and vomiting means, suppose someone have a motion sickness. If someone goes to the hilly side, he or she can with motion sickness, due to the motion sickness, he can vomit. Okay. Other thing, if someone is taking some drug, there's a chemotherapy drug, he or she can have a problem of tendency of vomiting, nausea and the vomiting. In pregnancy, they all have heard that the pregnancy in the first trimester, there is a one symptom known as morning sickness. So that time also anyone can have a problem of that in antiemetic. So antiemetics is mainly the drugs which deals with the all the nausea and the vomiting. And suppose if some patients having the, for example, the Parkinson, levodopa, he or she also, after that medicine, I will come to that point. Okay, he or she can feel the vomiting. And where's the vomiting center? Our brain, medulla, there's a one vomiting center, and that center is named as VTZ. It is present outside the blood-brain barrier. In physiology, I think you will study about the blood-brain barrier. There's a one center, that center is known as CTZ. Whenever that strikes the CTZ, we causes the nausea and the vomiting. So what are the drugs? So which helps in the vomiting, which causes the vomitings? I have mentioned which helps in the vomiting. Just say the one drug, ACH, anticholinergic drug. The one drug, the drug name is hyoscine, the scopolamine. Over here, these are all one-liner questions, and the teacher is to ask. The first question is very, very important because there's a three questions. See, I will explain. The motion sickness. What is the drug of choice for the motion sickness? Everybody, without any hesitation, they will say hyoscine or the scopolamine. Okay. The other drug which comes from the H1 blocker, histamine 1 blocker. In histamine, there's a many blocker. I've already mentioned the histamine 2 blocker. There's the ranitidine and cimetidine. Don't confuse with that thing with the H1 blocker. What is the H1 blocker name? Doxalamine. What drug is to given? Morning sickness, pregnancy time. Doxalamine. Please remember one thing. I will say one concept. Earlier in morning sickness, there was a one drug which was to given. That drug is known as thalidomide. I don't know if someone knows that name or not. Thalidomide. Drug was given at the earlier phase for the morning sickness, but few years back, that drug, that drug was becoming so toxic that what does it causes? It causes the phocombia. Suppose the pregnant woman comes to you. You will be very much to be good at pharma when you will deal with any pregnant patient, because in pregnancy time your pharmacology have to be very much effective, because you should think thrice before prescribing any drug. Why so I'm saying you? Because right now everywhere doxalamine was being prescribed as a morning sickness, but few years back, okay, there was a most potent drug. That drug was named as thalidomide, which was also used to given for the morning sickness, but that drug had a very side effect. What's the side effect of that drug? It causes a phocombia. Phocombia means the baby born without limb. Everyone sees the silfish, right? Silfish. the silfish, they doesn't have any limb, and that the baby born with the silfish, Phocombelia. So that drug has been omit out. So now if anyone say, and please don't mix with the motion sickness and the morning sickness. Morning sickness is doxalamine. Morning doxalamine. Uh, and how to remember with this thing? Just doc. See, every patient, every people, not patient, every people, they used to go outside morning walk with their dog. Okay, so please remember that morning we used to go walk with our dog. And what's the name of the drug? Doxylamine. And motion, scopolamine or the hyoscine. Scopolamine, hyoscine with the motion sickness, and the morning sickness we used to go morning walk with our favorite, with our pet's dog. And morning sickness is the doxylamine. And please write it down. I didn't mention over here. If someone says a mountain sickness, can you say me what is the drug of choice for mountain sickness? I have already said the motion sickness is the hyoscine or the scopolamine. Morning sickness is a doxylamine. Can anyone say me what is the drug of choice for the mountain sickness?
Sir, Maclizine.
Anyone?
Sir, Maclizine.
Now, okay, I got. Anyone? Anyone else?
Mountain sickness, something that would act on the pressure.
Acetazolamide is the drug of choice for the mountain sickness. So please remember all these three M. What is the morning sickness? What is the motion sickness? What is the mountain sickness? For motion sickness, scopolamine. Morning sickness, doxylamine. Mountain sickness, acetazolamide. Please very much sure about all these three M, because this is a very tricky one-liner question which will face in your exam life. Whenever we will give exam, okay, if someone asks, they will definitely give this one or three one-liner. What is the mountain sickness, motion sickness, and the morning sickness? Now after that comes other blocker, the 5-HT3 blocker. What is that 5-HT3 blocker means? Over there 5-HT3 blocker, there comes some drugs. The ondansetron, granisetron, tropisetron, and the prolandosetron. All the drugs which come the setron, these are the 5-HT3 blockers. And just see over there I mentioned the granisetron and tropisetron. These are the drug of choice for the vomiting and the radiotherapy induced vomiting. Means if some patient comes to the radiotherapy and after that he or she feels vomiting, then we prescribe this type of drug. Ondansetron, granisetron, tropisetron. And out of all this, and if someone post-operative, after operation, if someone feels like vomiting, he or she can take this prolandosetron. And with P, remember, it is the most potent drug in the 5-HT3 blocker. Ondansetron, granisetron, tropisetron, these are the drugs which causes drug of choice for the radiotherapy induced vomiting. And after post-operation, if some feels like vomiting, what will be the drug of choice? The drug of choice will be the prolandosetron. And these drugs come under the 5-HT3 blocker. After that, there's the one substance known as substance P, and that substance P stands for the neurokinin antagonist. What is the neurokinin antagonist? It is a substance P. It is it is involved in the vomiting, delayed vomiting. Neurokinin. It releases the neurokinin, inhibits the neurokinin. So it's a neurokinin antagonist. What is the neurokinin? Aprepitant and neopitant. This is a drug of choice for delayed vomiting after. Please write it down for chemotherapy, because if some patients they are going for the chemotherapy, and after that, as we all know, the chemo, I will mention in the drug causes anti-cancer drug, what are the drugs which we will prescribe after chemo, because after chemo every patient feels like vomiting. So what are the drugs that will be prescribed after vomiting? Because the neurokinin antagonist, and this is a substance P. If invigilator can ask you directly what are the neurokinin antagonists, but what are the drugs which comes under the substance P. Substance P is nothing but the neurokinin release, the neurokinin inhibition, and the drugs which comes under the neurokinin is the aprepitant and the neopitant. And after that, the last one is a D2 antagonist. What is D2 antagonist mean? D2 antagonist means a dopamine antagonist. Suppose I am giving you one example, a clinical scenario. One patient is taking levodopa, and can anyone say what is the levodopa is giving in which case, in which clinical case levodopa is being prescribed as a drug of choice? In which disease?
Parkinson's disease.
Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease means the patient have to give levodopa. In Parkinson's disease, the dopamine reduced down, dopamine. So what is the in levodopa? We all know that levodopa crosses the blood-brain barrier. So whenever it will cross the blood-brain barrier, it will directly come. Okay, I'm talking about the levodopa. Don't come right now. Don't think the metoclopramide and domperidone. Just right now, listen what I am saying. If patient taking the levodopa means he is a patient with the Parkinson, and what does the levodopa do? Levodopa causes the blood-brain barrier, and whenever it will causes the blood-brain barrier, the dopamine will increase dopamine. So it will be a good for the Parkinson patient. Okay, but sometimes the levodopa in periphery, if levodopa doesn't, if in levodopa, if it in periphery, if it produces a dopamine, then it will doesn't able to cross the blood-brain barrier. Then what it will trigger it out outside medulla? There's a one receptor present. That receptor is responsible for the vomiting, and that receptor name is CTZ receptor. So we want that receptor. We want any medicine.
Excuse me, sir.
Say.
Could you go a bit slow?
Okay. Any patient who is taking levodopa for anti-Parkinson's disease, okay, so levodopa crosses blood-brain barrier, and whenever the levodopa crosses the blood-brain barrier, it will causes what? It will make some. It will in brain. It is good because Parkinson, that dopamine quantity of the dopamine is very less. So we have to produce the dopamine. But suppose levodopa on the outside periphery, it doesn't able to cross the blood-brain barrier. Okay, so it will trigger one substance, and that substance is a vomiting substance, the trigger zone, and that center is known as CTZ. It is a receptor zone. Suppose if we touch that receptor which is present outside the medulla, that receptor name is CTZ receptor. CTZ receptor, and whenever we will touch that CTZ receptor, the vomiting will start produced. So there is the two drugs, the metoclopramide and the domperidone. Metoclopramide, which causes the blood-brain barrier, but domperidone will do not cross the blood-brain barrier. If someone taking the metoclopramide, he have a drug-to-drug interaction with 5-HT3. What are the drugs for 5-HT3? Ondansetron, granisetron, tropisetron. Because metoclopramide directly have a relation with this 5-HT3 blocker, but domperidone doesn't have any such action with other drugs. Can anyone say me, if someone has a vomiting with this thing, so which drug should be given in Parkinson patient? Which drug should be given? Metoclopramide should be given or domperidone should be given?
Metoclopramide.
Why?
Because it will cross the blood-brain barrier and trigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other options? Any other question answer?
And it also inhibits that 5-HT3, so it won't induce vomiting.
Okay. Any other? If we give metoclopramide, see, if we give metoclopramide, then metoclopramide what will do? It will cause the blood-brain barrier. And if it causes the blood-brain barrier, then it can also reduce the dopamine content. So we will give metoclopramide or not? We want something that which doesn't interact with the dopamine. No, we doesn't interact with dopamine, which we doesn't want that basal ganglia to be hampered. Then what will be the drug of choice? Can everyone got my question?
Yes, sir. Then I think we should give domperidone.
Domperidone. Everyone makes the same mistakes because everyone makes the same mistake. Why so? Because metoclopramide causes the blood-brain barrier. But if it causes the blood-brain barrier, then what is happening? It is hampering the basal ganglia. It's happening is directly interacting with the dopamine that we doesn't want. We want to stop the drug which will not enter into the basal ganglia, which will not enter into the basal ganglia. We'll stop on that way. We will stop that so that it will just trigger, not to trigger the CTZ center, and the drug which not will trigger the CTZ center is the domperidone. So please, very much sure about this answer. If someone say, if any Parkinson patient, he is taking some medicine, and what will be the drug of choice? Then your answer should be the domperidone, not the metoclopramide, because metoclopramide causes the blood-brain barrier. We doesn't want to hamper in basal ganglia any dopamine. We just only want to, his vomiting should be reduced, and what will be given for that? Will allow the domperidone, and that is the drug of choice. Now everyone understand? And it's also having any drug to drug interaction, so it is very safe to give. No, so without any hesitation, please say domperidone. If someone says the metoclopramide is a drug of choice, say him wrong, you are wrong. We will not give metoclopramide, we will give domperidone. And believe me, mark my word. And but everywhere you will get the thing that if you will come to mind, the metoclopramide will be the drug of choice, but metoclopramide will not be a drug of choice. This is the reason explanation I've explained you. So what will the drug of choice? Domperidone. Everyone understand? I want answer. Everyone understands?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You used to give replies very late. I don't know why. Is a network problem? You have to just say me yes or no. And it takes just a fraction of second. Have you all understand this concept?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just going to my next slide. And what my next slide is the, sorry. And the next slide is the antidiarrheal drug.
So we can't see your screen.
Okay, just a minute, go. Now is okay, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now the drug which comes under the GIT is the antidiarrheal drug. What are the antidiarrheal drug means? The antidiarrheal drug means the drug which will help in our prevention of the diarrhea. Okay, most of the time the diarrhea is very not severe. It's not very severe most of the time, but sometimes it may be severe. For suppose if any diarrhea which can causes by the rotavirus infection, so it may be severe sometimes, but most of the time it's not severe. Can anyone say me what is the drug of choice? What drug we should apply for the diarrhea? What drug comes in mind when you used to think about the diarrhea? The patient has,
Metronidazole.
okay, but the basic drug which comes under mind when you hear about diarrhea, what you said?
The
ORS, sir.
Metrogyl, Norfloxacin, sir.
Oh, Metrogyl, Norfloxacin, O2, these are all the drugs. But suppose to be illiterate, we are all literate now. You are the
ORS solution.
Sir, ORS, sir.
Hi, ORS, you are the cream of the society. So you know the cream of the society. So, but those who are not the cream of the society, they doesn't know the metronidazole, norfloxacin, O2. Okay, what they will think? They will say early in the morning, add some salt in the water and just drink. And what that thing? There is a thing is the ORS. Can anyone say what is the full form of ORS? Please don't search. Huh? What is the full form of ORS?
Oral rehydrate solution.
Oral rehydrate solution. So oral rehydrate salt, not solution, salt. Oral rehydrate salt. So, and if any diarrhea patient he has a chance of dehydration, so we always save the patient from the dehydration. So for that we prescribe ORS. ORS is nothing but ORS. Why is to give the ORS? Because whenever we have a huge diarrhea, the stool it starts losing sodium, potassium, chloride. So ORS, with the help of the ORS, we don't want the patient to be dehydrated. So we have to give ORS. And what is the role of the sodium chloride and the potassium chloride? To replenish the electrolytes, to bring back the electrolytes. There's a questions. 1 liter ORS contains what is the how much? Hello. And so is there a question in every exam nowadays? that now they doesn't wants to ask the what is the full form of ORS, why used to give ORS, because everyone knows that from the whenever a patient's having a dehydration, when patient's having a diarrhea, we have to, our main aim was to save the patients from the dehydration, because whenever we will go school much so often, we will lose our electrolytes. What are the electrolytes? Sodium chloride, potassium chloride. Okay, so nowadays the invigilator, they used to ask 1 liter ORS contains how much sodium, how much chloride, and total osmolarity. Please write it down wherever you want to write, wherever you feel right. In 1 liter ORS contains Na, sodium 75 mg per deciliter, chloride 75, and the osmolarity, total osmolarity is 245. And we should add the ORS ad libitum, means as per
Sir,
the
could you repeat that again?
1 liter ORS contains how much sodium, how much chloride, and what is the total osmolarity. So sodium is 75, chloride 75, and the osmolarity is 245. And we should mention the patient, and we will write the patient at libitum, means he or she 75, 75, and the total osmolarity is 245. ORS contains total osmolarity. Sodium is a 75. Chloride is 75. Sodium is 75, chloride is 75, and the total osmolarity is 245. Please remember, 1 liter ORS contains how much? Nowadays, this question, they used to ask this question. 1 liter ORS contains how much? And we after that we'll add some sodium to prevent this acidosis. Now, H. pylori, when we mention that H. pylori, now there is some also other bacteria which can causes this the diarrhea. Some this is amoebic, maybe some bacteria for which the diarrhea can happen. Okay, can anyone say me the basic difference if someone having the diarrhea with the bacteria or anyone having the diarrhea with the amoeba? What will be the clinical feature in the diarrhea alongside with the diarrhea?
The mucus in stool.
But how come the patient will see the mucus in the stool? Suppose I am not belong for a medical category. Early morning I went to the bathroom twice or thrice or 15 times a day. 15 times.
Sir, bleeding will be there, sir.
Bleeding. Anymore. How will you
Fever.
differentiate? Who said this fever?
J.
This is the main difference between the amoebic and the bacterial dysentery, diarrhea. In bacterial diarrhea, there will be diarrhea plus accompanied with the fever. But in amoebic, fever will be not be there so often. But it's a clinical picture question. If you have the bacteria diarrhea alongside with the fever, then you have to think that it's been caused by the bacterial infection. And if you think that it is caused by the amoebic, then you think that without fever, then you can think it's amoebic infection, and for that you can prescribe. And for amoebic infection you may use metronidazole, or for bacterial infection you may use ciprofloxacin. And these drugs I will mention in the antibacterial chapter, but right now just remember these two things, that for any drug, for the amoebic drug, if any patient having the diarrhea, what drug we should be giving? The metronidazole. And if for any bacterial infection for diarrhea will occur, then what drug we should be prescribed? And that drug is a ciprofloxacin. Again, for the 2 weeks we should prescribe these two drugs. And now after that it comes around the non-infective diarrhea, and over there is a 2 more. One is the loperamide, the non-infection which causes the intestinal mortality. Intestinal mortality will be the same thing. And diphenhexylate is a non-infection diarrhea. Someone belongs to, he or she can take the loperamide, and we will decrease the intestinal mortality, and with the help of that the diarrhea duration of the diarrhea will become less. And the last one is the secretory diarrhea. What does this secretory diarrhea mean? Secretory diarrhea is the 5-HT. Someone is having the 5-HT3. 5-HT means the serotonin secretion, and with the help of the carcinoid syndrome, as I think in surgery you have already known about what is the carcinoid syndrome. It's nothing but about a serotonin secretion with the help of which the VIPoma will occur, and by the help of that gastric intestinal motility will increase. And what is VIPoma? Vasoactive intestinal polypeptide. And for that we'll use one drug which is known as octreotide, and this octreotide is the injectable. Remember, whenever any drug ends with TIDE, TIDE, maximum drug means with TID, these are all with the injectable drugs, and maximum TID drugs will encounter with the endocrine class, because there are all the somatostatin analog. Please remember, in carcinoid syndrome, wherever there will be increase in the serotonin, what is the serotonin, there will be a gastric intestinal mortality will increase, and as a result, the VIPoma will come. What is the VIPoma? Vasoactive intestinal polypeptide, and we will give the octreotide, and it is a somatostatin analog. And octreotide is what? Octreotide is this? Octreotide is an injectable drug. Now after that is comes the second most topic of the laxative and purgatives. What is the laxative? What is the role of laxatives and purgatives? Laxative is and purgatives is only used in cases where we want the patient to be past stool. Where laxative is a semi-solid and purgatives is a watery stool. Laxative we use in the mild cases and purgatives we use in the strong cases. Where we will use laxatives and purgatives when the patient having a constipation. And you all know that there are two types of constipation. One is obstructive constipation, and the other one is a GI functional constipation. In obstruction constipation means there is some obstruction, and functional constipation means the GIT, the gastrointestinal tract cannot pass. Okay, there are two. Again, I am repeating. If I am too fast over here, the constipation. There are two types of constipation. One is the obstructive constipation, and the other one is the functional constipation. In obstructive constipation, this means there is some obstruction, and in functional constipation means that GIT cannot pass. And believe me, for types of constipation, one is the functional constipation and other one is the one is the obstruction constipation and other one is the functional constipation. In obstruction constipation, believe me, there's a no role of laxatives and purgatives, because if there's already the obstruction, then we cannot reduce that obstruction with the help of the only laxatives and purgatives. There's a different way of approach. But in functional obstruct constipation, there's a limited role of laxatives and purgatives. But believe me, if any patient have any constipation, then he or she don't need to take any medicine, because he or she, if they have a very good diet, the rich high fiber of diet, or if they are allowed to work, then there is a no role of medicine. But some cases, if any patient having a carcinoma patient, GIT malignancy, he or she can't take the diet rich in fiber. For that cases, we can prescribe some medicine for the constipation. But now, orders. The semi-solid stools and purgatives causes the watery stools. And what are the uses of the laxatives? I have already said. Now one uses of the laxatives and purgatives is the X-ray of the KUB, kidney, ureter and bladder. Without these laxatives, if someone is having a diagnosis with kidney stone, okay, without laxatives, whenever we will diagnose that kidney stone, if there's a one stone, we will see lots of stone, because due to the fecal leak. So before kidney, urinary bladder examination X-ray, we will give laxatives and purgatives so that the patient's GIT is clear, so that there will be no obstruction. So for the X-ray of the KUB, we use laxative and the purgatives. Second, to prevent the straining. Straining means the pressure in piles or the anal fissure. Suppose if any patients have the piles or the anal fissure, then believe me, he or she is going every morning with a huge pain. So to reduce the strain, to reduce this pain, we used to give the laxatives and purgatives so that this motion passes very smoothly, very gently, without causing any pain. The third one is the stool softener. What the stool softener means, it just allows the decrease that surface tension of fluid in the GIT. What is the stool softener? It makes the surface tension of the GIT decreases, so the stool will easily passes away. And the othermost thing is the osmotic purgatives. Osmotic purgatives, in laxatives and purgatives, we have to drink a lots and lots of water to reduce constipation. Okay, because some person who doesn't drink water, he or she can also have a constipation problem. In osmotic purgatives, what are the role of osmotic purgatives? What does it mean? The osmotic purgatives. Osmotic purgatives means that it causes the osmosis. What does the osmosis mean? It means that our body will extract water from somewhere else. It means that even if we didn't drink lots of water, our body will help to release in the constipation. And in osmotic purgatives, there's a one composition drug. This is a saline purgative. Saline comes under the osmotics, and that saline, there's a one composition of saline. It causes MgSO4, magnesium. Okay, MgSO4 and the magnesium OH2. But magnesium ion level. But over here I have written that magnesium is contraindicated in chronic renal failure. Why so I written chronic renal failure? Because osmotic purgatives, there's a whenever we use osmotic purgatives, we doesn't need to drink lots and lots of water, because the water which will they will already extract water from the GIT, and that will help from the constipation. But with the help of the saline purgatives, the magnesium salts, the in osmotic purgative there's a one composition known as saline purgatives, and within this saline purgatives there's a one salt, there's a magnesium salt. If the kidney doesn't work properly, the magnesium ion level will affect. So that's why in chronic renal failure we will use other stool softener we will use in for constipation, but we laxatives we will use, purgatives we will use, but we'll never use the osmotic purgatives. And last one is the most important, not the most important one, is the chloride channel stimulating. Chloride channel stimulating is, how does chloride channel help in this thing? Is also the same thing. Chloride channel stimulate direct. There's something which directly chloride stimulates, and which is the other thing which indirectly stimulate in the chloride channel. Same thing, the chloride also do the one thing. I forgot one thing. No, in chloride channel, sorry. In chloride channel, there are two drugs I already mentioned. Chloride channel means the chloride work also the same thing. Chloride, whenever the chloride will comes in our GIT, it will extract the water from the other sources. There are some drugs which directly stimulate the chloride channel, or the other some drugs which indirectly stimulate the chloride channel. The pathway by which the chloride channel is stimulated, and that pathway is known as guanylate cyclase stimulated, which increases the cyclic GMP. Whenever the cyclic GMP will increases, it will react through the path cis fiber transmembrane, cystic fiber transmembrane, through which the chlorine secretion will increase, and with the help of the chlorine secretion, the water will comes down and the patient's constipation will decreases. And these are the two drugs which comes under the chloride channel stimulant. What are these two drugs? Linaclotide and lubipristone. These are the two drugs which comes under the chloride channel stimulants. And but remember one thing, just now I say no, the osmotic purgative is contraindicated in chloride renal failure. Same thing, the chloride channel stimulating is contraindicated in children because it causes severe dehydration in children. So it's only indicated in adults. If anything, if any questions comes that give one drug which is contraindicated in children, then we should always think about the chloride channel. But I think so chloride channel is not very important, but still with the help of chloride also we can reduce our constipation. So it's better by which pathway it increases, each stimulates. The pathways are known as guanylate cyclase stimulate, through which the cyclate GMP pathway increases, through which the chloride secretion, cystic fiber transmembrane pathway, and the chloride secretion will increase. And what are the two drugs? Lubipristone and the chloride channel stimulants, and linaclotide. These are the drugs which directly stimulate the chloride channel, and other two drugs which act through the GMP pathway are the linaclotide and not linaclotide, plecanatide. These are the drugs which linaclotide, lubipristone, and plecanatide. These are the drugs which act through the CGMP pathway, chloride channel stimulants. And the last one is the opioid. Opioid also causes constipations. So in GIT, there's a one receptor, famous receptor for the opioid receptor known as the mu receptor. So there's a receptor by which we can also reduce the, if someone's taking opioid and if you're having some constipation for the GIT opioid receptor, then we will prescribe some drugs, and the specific receptor for the GIT in opioid is the mu receptor. So what are the drugs that comes under the opioid antagonist? If opioid causes diarrhea, opioid causes constipation, then the one drug is the naloxegel, naltrexone, and other one of the drug also the methyl naltrexone. Methyl. I will write over here. Hello, Pawan sir. Hello.
Hear you. I can
Sir.
hear you.
Okay, sir. Can you write over there? I forgot to mention one drug over there. That drug name is methyltraxone. Just write over there in opioid antagonist, naloxegel, naltrexone, and one more drug, methyl naltrexone. METHYL naltrexone. TNALTREXONE. Methyl naltrexone. And the new drug is the naloxegel.
I will just do that. You continue.
Methyl naltrexone, opioid antagonist. Please write.
You're talking about opioid antagonist, no?
Opioid antagonist.
Okay.
Methyl naltrexone.
I will write it down just now and send it. You continue.
And now the last and the most foremost chapter is the inflammatory bowel disease. And that inflammatory bowel disease, the Crohn's disease and the ulcerative colitis. This is the topic mainly to be discussed with the medicine teacher, mainly to be discussed with the pharmacologist, mainly to be discussed with the surgery teacher. But from my point of view, I made some very good mnemonic, and this is a very good. Everyone loves this Crohn's invigilator. Every teacher loves this topic, Crohn's, or they will ask ulcerative. In Crohn's disease, I made one mnemonic. For ulcerative colitis also, I made one mnemonic. Rest will be discussed by your medicine teacher and some other surgery teacher. I just mentioned some mnemonic, and after that I will just come directly to the drugs. In Crohn's, just is a mention the mnemonic. Just see the mnemonic. Crohn's to be remembered by the sister. What the sister stands for? A for the skip lesion. I is the ileum, most common site to be affected in the Crohn's. There's one antibody for the Crohn's is the Saccharomyces cerevisiae antibody in Crohn's disease. It's a transmural, means intra-abdominal access is there. Extra fibrosis in the fistula formations over there. And in Crohn's disease, it's a very good question for every teacher. What are the radiological signs in Crohn's disease? Is a string sign of Cantor or the rectum spared. Same in ulcerative colitis. What are the drugs which comes down to? What are the mnemonic in ulcerative colitis? I listed over here. These are the one thing. In ulcerative colitis, it's a In ulcerative colitis, one famous mnemonic with the colitis. Crohn's to be remembered with the skip lesions. It is to be remembered with the continuous and the retrograde. It is the most common say ileum. It's a common say the rectum. Radiological sign is a string sign of Cantor. Radiological sign is a late pipe appearances. In ulcerative colitis, both can cause the cancer, but the ulcerative colitis is a huge risk of the cancer. So I stand with the increased chance of the cancer. T is the toxic megacolon and is also increases pseudopolyps, and symptoms is as severe as to Crohn's disease. But now I will directly come with the pharmacological point of accept with the inflammatory bowel disease. In inflammatory bowel disease, we have two diseases as compared, I've already said you, ulcerative colitis and the Crohn's disease. In ulcerative colitis, the colon involvement is there, and in Crohn's disease, the full GIT tract involvement is there. In ulcerative colitis, the main mode of treatment is the 5-ASA. What is that ASA means? ASA means is the amino salicylic acid. It is the most powerful anti-inflammatory substrate drug. Anti-inflammatory substrate drug. ASA means amino salicylic acid. Amino salicylic acid, if you directly take from orally, it will go to the stomach, absorb, but it will not able to absorb, because as we all know, it's acidic medium. For over there, we have to again, just like the PPI, we have to again make its changes, its preparation. Because if we directly take the ASA drug and if we directly put into our mouth, after that it will go to the stomach, it will absorb over there due to the acid, but it doesn't want to be there, so it will not reach to the colon. So for that, we made one bond with the drug, just like in the proton pump inhibitor, we made a drug with the enteric coating, and over there we made this amino salicylic acid drug with a coating, with a bond, and that bond is known as azo bond. And what does this azo bond mean? Suppose 5-ASA, see 5-ASA, 5-ASA we can't give directly, so before that we have to add some bond, means we use some preparatives. And what that bonding means, with that bond is the azo bond. And for example, 5-ASA plus sulfur pyridine is taken, and the product is the sulfasalazilline. The first drug is sulfasalazilline, and sulfasalazilline is a drug of also used in the rheumatoid arthritis. So please, once again I'm saying you, 5-ASA cannot be given directly, because if we give directly, it will come to the stomach acid, it will absorb, and it will can't reach to the colon. So for that, we will add 5-ASA with some bond. We will prepare this 5-ASA with some bond, and that bond name is the azo bond. So we will make, and for example, one example with the azo bond is the sulfapyridine. So amino salicylic acid, ASA is amino salicylic acid plus sulfapyridine together mixed with the one drug which is known as sulfasalazilline. And sulfasalazilline is also used in the rheumatoid arthritis. The next olasalazilline is what? Olasalazilline 5-ASA, amino salicylic acid. First I make a azo bond with the sulfapyridine. Now second time, please write 5-ASA plus 5-ASA. Now this azo bond, I am making this azo bond with together 5-ASA, and that time this drug name is olasalazilline. And third one is the mesalamine. 5-ASA is a very pH sensitive drug, so I am covering is that I'm changing its texture. So again I will make with the 5-ASA and 5-ASA, and together I'm making this azo bond, and it will come under the mesalamine. And if all these 5-ASA drugs are not helpful, then we will respond to the steroids if not responding to the 5-ASA. But on the contrary, in Crohn's disease, the first mode of treatment is the drug of choice will be the steroids. If someone asks you what is the drug of choice for the ulcerative colitis, don't mark steroid, because steroid will always comes last for the ulcerative colitis. Whereas in the Crohn's disease, steroids will be the first one to be answered, because steroids is the drug of choice for the Crohn's disease. And after that, if steroids is not helpful, then we will add TNF alpha. And in TNF alpha, there is some drug which we have to remember: adalimumab, cetrizumab, Intercept, and infliximab. What are the drugs which comes under the TNF alpha blockers if steroids not respond? The adalimumab, certolizumab, Intercept, and the last one is the infliximab. Is the all a monoclonal antibody. MAP means monoclonal antibodies. These are the MAP which I will discuss in the monoclonal antibodies in the cancer. But just now remember, if steroids not work, then we will starts with the TNF blocker. But in the ulcerative colitis, first we'll start with the 5-ASA, and after that we'll start with the steroids. This ends with our GIT, pharmacology on GIT. Any questions, any doubt?
So, in the peptic ulcer disease, you explained with the enteric coating. Can you repeat that section, the enteric coating one?
Okay. The proton pump inhibitor. Okay. Suppose the proton pump inhibitor is the drug which is acid labile drug. Okay. So if you directly give the drug, it will comes to the GIT. It will come to the stomach after mouth. Whenever you will take that drug, it will directly come to the stomach, and it will neutralize over there due to the acid. But so it will not show its effect. We want that drug to be comes to the blood. So before that, what we have to do with PPI, we will mix that drug with the enteric coating, so that whenever after the stomach it will come to the intestine, it will come to the blood, and after that it will show it action. Because as we all know, blood has a pH of alkaline 7, whereas the stomach alkaline is 4. It's a pro drug, means we have to change the medium for where it's to be acted. So it's a enteric coating before we have to do, so that it comes to the blood and show its action. You understand?
Yes, sir.
So this ends with my topic. Any questions, any doubt? But still I have some questions for you. If you want, you can answer. All of the following are induced for drug-induced vomiting except ondansetron, metoclopramide, scopolamine, chlorpromazine. Can anyone say? I think Neha can say. Neha? Neha, can you listen me?
Yes, sir.
So can you say me the answer of this? All of the following drugs, all of the following are applicable for the drug-induced vomiting except ondansetron, metoclopramide, scopolamine, and chlorpromazine.
So metoclopramide.
Somebody has to try.
Someone else also can try.
Sir, ondansetron.
Ondansetron. Anyone? The answer will be the scopolamine. Why so? Because scopolamine is the drug which only used for the motion sickness. I can show you. See. Scopolamine is a motion sickness, and all the other drugs are used for the vomiting, radiotherapy vomiting. It's a use for the motion sickness. So our answers will be the scopolamine, not the other drugs. Drug of choice for NSAID-induced peptic ulcer.
Omeprazole.
See, I have already mentioned this question. This is a very important question. Drug of choice for NSAID-induced peptic ulcer, omeprazole, because it is a PPI. If there is no drug of choice, if you only written the NSAID-induced peptic ulcer drug, then there will be the answer with the misoprostol. But if the question is written the drug of choice for the NSAID, see, misoprostol will be the first one. Student will mark misoprostol, but no, misoprostol will not be the answer. Answer will be the omeprazole, proton pump inhibition. Not true about the composition of ORS. NaCl.
Come on, answer this question. Somebody, they all
Glucose.
Glucose.
Sir, bicarbonate, sir.
Bicarbonate.
Bicarbonate.
Glucose.
All right, I think he's already covered this in his talk. You covered it in your talk. Eddie? Okay, ORS, you have sodium 75 millimoles per liter. You have glucose 75 millimoles per liter. You have, I think, chloride at 65 millimoles per liter. Potassium as 20 millimoles per liter. Okay, this is the composition of ORS. You need glucose because without glucose, the water will not get absorbed into the cells. So glucose is required to be a composition of ORS. Glucose is an important component of ORS. It is in the same concentration as the sodium. So sodium and glucose are 75 millimoles per liter. Potassium is 20 millimoles per liter, and chloride is 65 millimoles per liter. Okay, understood? Have you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sodium, glucose 75 millimoles per liter, chloride 65 millimoles per liter, and potassium is around 20 millimoles per liter. This is the latest formula given by WHO. So obviously not true about composition of ORS is bicarbonate. Secondly, you asked this question. I know that what you practice in medicine is not essentially what you are taught in the medical school. You are asked the treatment of diarrhea, or everybody jump to antimicrobial drugs, Norflox. You know.
Can anyone see my screen?
And we all can see the screen. I've already answered this question for them.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say,
can anyone see my screen?
Dr. Jaideep, everybody is seeing your screen.
Okay.
Okay, so I was just on to this where you left last. Not true about composition of ORS. I just explained to them that without glucose, all these sodium and potassium and chloride cannot be absorbed. So glucose is an essential component of ORS, and it is present in the concentration of 75 millimoles per liter. What has happened? You are off?
No.
Or I am off?
Because Because in intestine, if I forget, then I can mention. Can everyone see? Can everyone listen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
GI,
but your screen is not full screen.
okay. Just a minute. It's a network problem. In GIT, in GIT, there's a one there's a one pump. That pump is a SGLT1 pump. Is what is the role of the SGLT1 pump? The sodium glucose transporter pump in intestine. So glucose helps the sodium absorption. Without glucose, the sodium will not be absorbed. So the composition of glucose will be there. If I forget that time, right now I'm mentioning that in intestine there's a one pump, and that pump is the SGLT1 pump, and that pump works even on severe diarrhea also. That SGLT1 pump. So what's my question? So
Yeah.
not true about the composition of ORS, NaCl, KCl, bicarbonate, glucose. What will be the answer?
Okay, now give it. You've already been told.
Bicarbonate, sir.
What?
Bicarbonate.
Bicarbonate.
Okay. All are H2 blockers except
Omeprazole.
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 Okay, antacid drug usually causes diarrhea. Which drug?
Sir,
Magnesium.
MgSO.
MG. MD, and what drug which causes constipation?
Aluminium.
Aluminium.
Okay, this ends with my side. Any questions, any queries you can ask me. Or else I will finish my PPT. I'm finished with this topic, GIT. Someone is laughing, I think so.
They have understood.
Everyone understand?
Yeah, they have understood very clearly. They understood your last question of diarrhea and constipation very well.
MD, because your teacher gave me a very famous mnemonic. MD, you have done Guyana, you have went Guyana for to get a degree on MD. So magnesium diarrhea and aluminum constipation. Just remember this thing.
Okay, there's a question from Jyoti Yadav. Dosage of triple drug therapy.
Okay, right now it's useless, but whenever I come, it's a very good question. But whenever I will deal with that, because it's a question of the antimicrobial. Okay, so just right now, just listen, just read the name of the drug. Whenever I will come to the microbe, that time I will specify the dosage and specify the category. But right now, just read the name only. Because a triple drug therapy is there for the H. pylori, the PPI, and plus two antimicrobial agent. And the famous mnemonic for that, for still now, just remember CAP, clarithromycin, azithromycin, and one drug from the PPI.
Okay, so you just know clarithromycin is 500 milligram, amoxicillin is 1000 milligram, and your omeprazole 20 milligram.
But right now, I think, sir, it will be.
This is all right. They should know that this triple drug contains these elements. Those you tell them full dose of treatment, tell them subsequently when you take up this.
Subsequently, when
Sir,
I will deal.
Yeah.
So can you please repeat the ASA derivatives and azobond?
Okay. That ulcerative colitis, the main drug of choice is the 5-ASA, amino salicylic acid. It is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory substance. Okay, so if you take directly azo, it will come to the stomach, it will absorb, it will not go to the colon. For that, we have to make the amino salicylic acid with a bonding, and that bonding is known as azo bond. So how we will make that bond? First, write one ASA, amino salicylic acid plus sulfapyridine. With this bond, we will make one drug, and that drug is the sulfasalazine, and that sulfasalazine is a pro-drug. That drug can be also used for rheumatoid arthritis. And the other azobond, we can make that azobond with the 5-ASA plus 5-ASA, 5 amino salicylic acid plus 5 amino salicylic acid, and that is the osalazine, and there is the azobond and mesalamine. And if not so, then we will use the steroid if amino salicylic acid is not be helpful. Because 5-ASA is a pH sensitive covering, so we will change the pH because if we directly come to the acid, just like the PPI, it will not be able to work. So we will change, we will make some bond. In PPI, we used to make some enteric coating, and over here we will make that bond, and that bond is the azo bond with the 5-ASA with the sulfur pyridine. We will make one drug sulfur salicylene, and 5-ASA plus 5-ASA will together make the olasalazine and mesalamine. Any other questions?
Just remember one thing. This salicylic acid, as I had told sometimes in your classrooms long time back, some of you must have attended it, in which I had told that salicylic acid itself can be used as a molecule for local treatment only. The salicylic acid as an ointment, it can be used against fungal infections as an astringent agent. But when you add the amino group, when you add the acetyl group, or the amino group becomes an oral drug. Okay, so when you add this acetyl group, it becomes aspirin. When you add the amino group, it becomes the amino salicylic acid derivatives like sulfasalazine or salicylene. Okay. I was asking, how is sulfasalazine effective for rheumatoid arthritis? Karishma, if you run everything in one class, it will become very difficult for others. Okay, they are all anti-inflammatory drugs. All right. All of them are anti-inflammatory, so they reduce the inflammatory response. And you know the 5 signs of inflammation, so you will take me to the 5 signs of inflammation now. So it reduces those inflammatory response, and therefore it is effective in rheumatoid arthritis. Because rheumatoid arthritis is an inflammatory response to many things, which we will discuss in rheumatoid arthritis. Okay.
But please be remember that it doesn't mean that sulfasalazine is only the drug for the rheumatoid arthritis. Hey, what Sarah said is reduce inflammation, so that's why it's also the drug which can be used in arthritis. But it is not the only. In subsequent classes, when I will study it with the arthritis, then I will also mention. But over here, I write the drug sulfasalazine, and I mentioned that if someone says that sulfasalazine is to be used where, then you guys should say that it also be used in rheumatoid arthritis, just to reduce the inflammation. In subsequent classes, when I will teach arthritis, I will also mention that some other drugs over there.
Okay, so you must know wherever there is itis, there is inflammation. But not necessarily same drug is to be used for same type of inflammation. All right. So just
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Everyone understand? I think so, right? GIT.
Please give your feedback. Have you understood?
Give me the feedback.
Yes, sir.
I want this feedback to be loud, just like my voice. Only one said yes. Say.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we've got a good idea now.
You got good idea, no? What I said in the first class, I said you that I will make you pharma very interesting subject, but for that, no, you guys please have to help me. And how you will help me? You have to study this subject. If you help me this thing, no, I will, believe me, I will make pharma a very easy subject for you. And whatever the medicine, whatever the drugs I will mention in my slide, no question will come outside of that.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Jaydeep, thank you very much for a lovely session. I think they've understood the basics of the GI system. You have beautifully covered everything, right from the peptic ulcer disease, right from the anti-emetics and to anti-diarrheal, as well as to laxatives, as well as covered inflammatory bowel disease syndromes. So I think they have been exposed to a whole plethora of drugs for the GI system. Now you must go back, read about it again, take some time, and let Dr. Jaydeep come back with the next group of clinical pharmacology lectures for you. Okay? I hope you all are with me. Thank you, Dr. Jaydeep. Thank you very much for making the subject so simple.
Okay, thank you, sir.